Welcome everybody to another super high takeaway value episode of How Outsourcing and AI Works for Small to Medium Business. I'm your host, Brad Stevens, and super excited to be having Cameron Herold on. A lot of you know him and his background and experience, and I mean, always fantastic nuggets that come from an intersection. Cameron, thank you for being here, man.
Hey, Brad, of course, welcome. And I'm also, by the way, a client of you guys. We are super excited. One of our newest hires that you guys got us, a woman named Tatiana from the Philippines, has just been crushing it for us on sales, so much so that I actually had her confused with someone else on our team. I thought somebody else on my team was managing all of my comments on social media and replying to people because the quality of the content was so high. And they're like, no, that's Tatiana. I'm like, what? Like, how is it possible that somebody who is so affordably priced is generating this kind of results? She's fantastic. So I actually raised her rate about 15% just like overnight, because I'm like, I should just be paying her more. She's just that good. So thank you.
Well, that's fantastic to hear, out of the gates, and that's, and the whole purpose of this, this series, and appreciate those comments and the opportunity to support you guys, CO Alliance. And we started with a whole nother path that we kind of engaged, which we'll kind of get into. But, at the end of the day, the whole theme around, this is to bring, similar to your message and your theme, right? It's just to add value. And, obviously we do this and provide staff at Outsource Access, but it's to really bring the message that, look, you got to get on board with this one way or another, right? Whether it's our company or otherwise, when it comes to outsourcing and AI and bringing those two together. And really, when you do them both, it's kind of 1 + 1 = 4. It can be really, impactful. So appreciate that share. And we'll definitely get into some more specific examples, because we're beyond top of funnel. People know that this whole world exists. They know outsourcing VAs, Philippines, India, South America, it all exists. But the question businesses really have, especially small to medium businesses, how is this actually going to work for my business? What can these people actually do? To your point, do they have enough competency and language capability that they can actually write and message on my behalf? And the answer is yes. And that's what I love doing this. When I was speaking a ton on this, do a 3-hour workshop for EO and YPO, and I know you've done a ton. It's just when you see the eyes open, when you share these case studies and examples, people are like, oh my gosh, that they can do that and that. I had no idea. So that's the mission here, is to share, and we'll do it through the lens of Cameron's, kind of experience. But as always, I'd like to give our listeners some value right out of the gates. A quick win. You guys all know I love, the latest tools and resources. Have our addictive tool series that we share. So I always ask my guests and myself to just share, the latest quick tech tool or app, a book or a podcast that our guests, if take nothing else, they can get a quick win right up front. So Cameron, I know you're always digging into a ton of stuff. What you got?
Yeah, one that we've been using a lot recently, and a lot of our COO Alliance members have been using as a resource. It's called There's an AI for That. So it's There's an AI for That. It's a dashboard that shows 40,000 different AI tools that exist for about 13,000 different AI jobs and about 5,000 jobs that exist. And this dashboard is a place that you go to. So like, is there an AI tool for this? It's like, boom, here's 7 of them. Is there an AI tool I can use for this? Boom, here's 12 of them. It literally shows you all the tools in one spot and allows you to try them out, to test them. It's a fantastic resource for, I guess, a landscape that's changing so darn quickly. Everybody's talking about, I'm using AI, and they mention like 3 different tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney and, Descript. Great, but what about these other 40,000 tools that exist that they've never even heard of? So that's my big win, is just go and ask it every day, is there an AI tool that does X? And you'll get a bunch of them. And then have your team play with the tools and report back in, hey, here's a tool I was trying. Here's how it's working for me. And have them do like 5-minute book reports every week just to show what they're doing. And I think being exposed to how everybody's using a tool is huge for everybody in their growth.
No doubt. I mean, the tools are, they're coming out at scale beyond, every 2 kids in a dorm room right now are producing a new tool every 5 minutes, and probably it's better than ones that big companies are making. Your son included, which I know got a fun story and kind of his path and journey. But thanks for sharing that one. So we'll definitely, there's an AI for that. On that topic, we'll share a couple. There's one called videoblog.ai that will turn any video, text, or idea into blog posts. So videoblog.ai, you can just go drop into YouTube video. It'll turn the whole thing into a text, a blog post, a media, another way that you can kind of recraft content. And then there's been a lot of these, like, ones that can kind of replicate voice that you can use. So the other tool I'd share real quick is Revoicer. So it's a tool that does realistic AI text to speech. There's a ton of them that are out there. 11 Labs, another one, but tested that one out and been super, super impressed. And as a bonus third one, because I'm hot on a bunch of tools I've learned in the last week, if people have not tested out Notebook LM, and it will take any piece of content, brochure, literature, website, and turn it into an interactive 2-person podcast. I'm behind the scenes on this. I had never heard of it, and most people I hadn't. I got online, and it's been around, I guess, for about a year. But it's unbelievable. It will take any piece of content. You literally upload a brochure for your company, put in the website, and it's like these 2 people bantering like Cameron and I are on a live interactive podcast, male and female voice, and laughing, joking. Like, it was one of the most abruptly
it's
scary
crazy.
AI things I experienced.
Dude, it's my head of marketing used Notebook.fm as part of her marketing pitch to me to hire her. And she had it review my entire website and all my marketing material, and then sent me this 15-minute podcast that AI had generated with them tearing apart my website and using her proposal and her test projects as the solutions. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so good.
You're hired.
Yeah. So we hired her. Yeah. Notebook.fm is fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, it's and I don't think they market it as well as what it is capable of, right? They market it as kind of a tool that, can kind of transcribe and do an audio version of content. But yeah, it's, from a sales and marketing standpoint, as we know, and I know you're a big content person, is, for us in the outsourcing world, we got 85 different industries. And so, commercial real estate was the first one that I played around with it. And actually a guest told me on the podcast about it. And so we've got this 28-page brochure that, and somebody in commercial real estate wants to know what we can do for them. Like, hey, here's all the things that we've ever done in commercial real estate. Well, most commercial real estate folks are high energy sales personalities. They're never going to read more than 3 bullet points on a PDF, but I've got it for the low bottom of the funnel people that actually want to go detail it. But now we've taken every playbook for our industry, uploaded to Notebook LM, and made it into an interactive podcast. So now my sales team can go to that super, high, probably likely ADD salesperson, commercial real estate broker, and say, hey, actually listen to a podcast. They call it the deep dive is what they name it. And it can kind of give you a kind of interactive podcast that they featured all the work that we do. And it's been incredible as another vehicle for consumption. And it literally creates it in 30 seconds. It was just crazy.
And Google owns it. Another reason why Google is not going away.
Yeah, they can keep grabbing all my content. We went Google Enterprise and continue to be impressed with where they're heading. So, well, awesome. Well, thanks so much for everybody got some quick tools and resources. If you drop off now, hopefully you got a quick win, but a lot more value to come here. So we'll jump in. And so Cameron Herold, tremendous background. He and I have known each other for a number of years through EO Entrepreneurs Organization circles I've been in for 15 years. And I know you joined many years through the whole journey and the process. It's kind of where how long for EO for you?
I was an EO member from 95 to 2000. And then starting in around 2002, I started speaking to EO chapters, and I've done presentations to EO chapters now in 29 countries. So I've been around for a long time.
Yeah, he said hit all the 7 continents, including Antarctica, in the speaking. And so if any of you are slightly on social media or LinkedIn, you've certainly seen Cameron and his content. He's a big growth kind of mastermind, and that's kind of been his claim to fame with this led him ultimately to leading COO Alliance that he's kind of built, and just this incredible mastermind of high performing COOs, and let him kind of share more kind of detail around it. But being the CEO whisperer is kind of a lot of his reputation, and big claim to fame, particularly on 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and being the person who helped to truly engineer their growth from 2 million to 106 million. I mean, in just 6 years, which is crazy growth. I thought growing to 500 people in 4 years was growth for us, but that's a whole nother level. So been a publisher magazine in multiple of the big names with Forbes, and the book Second in Command, which can't say enough about. But got a chance to really intersect with what the great work that he's doing with the COO Alliance. And we connected a while back ago. I have another organization called One-on-One Connections, where we do one-on-one connections for member-based organizations that kind of started off as a project during COVID to help our local EO chapter. And it's crazy, Cameron. We've done 40,000 connections now for organizations across the world. So it's been a pleasure to support you guys in helping COO Alliance. And then to be a client of ours on the the outsourcing the virtual assistant front to help support their members and the growth of the COO Alliance. So on that point, would love to just hear your entry point. I know you're very familiar with outsourcing and VAs for many, many, many years. And so it's an honor to have the opportunity to enter into your ecosystem. But for yourself and for listeners, typically I call them the doubt, fears, concerns. When I say the word virtual assistant, outsourcing, and what have you, I say there's these word bubbles that pop above everybody's head. And all those word bubbles are different, right? Some of it's about competency, language, ability, security. What are my existing employees going to think? For you and from others, in this space, like kind of what are those doubt, fears, and concerns that most people have going into this journey? Like, is this going to work? Let me give it a try. And then the experience on the other side.
Yeah. So I hired my first person overseas that was an outsourced hire around 14 years ago. So it's pretty early on through, I think it was Upwork or Odesk or something back in the day. She was great.
Yeah, Elance and Odesk were the big players back then.
Elance, I think it was. And she was great. Turned out she was quite good. She was from the Philippines. She wrote me a song on my birthday and played guitar to it. I would delegate work to her during the day, and then overnight she did it because of the time zones. And we talked over Skype because that's all that existed back in the day. It turned out to be great. What I recognized was all of my fears went away by putting a system in place to counter the fear. So if I wanted freelancers that spoke English, then I hired them from South Africa if they needed a perfect English accent. If I needed freelancers that were loyal, I hired loyal people. If I was worried that they weren't going to understand my company, then I built a better onboarding process and a better training process. And if I was worried that they were going to quit, then I paid them 5% more than I was going to need to. And I treated them better, and I sent them swag to make them feel a part of a company culture. And I included them in our team events and made them feel like they were a part of a brand versus the ugly stepchild overseas. So I just decided to put those systems in place, and those all started to work for me. And then as I started to introduce the concept to clients, those were kind of some of the early stage fears for them. The earliest early stage fears tended to be the accents that they were going to have, and people being worried that their clients weren't going to want to hear an Indian accent or a Filipino accent. I think we're past that now. I think we've gotten to the point now where even if you wanted to hire people with a English accent or a Chicago accent, that actually no one cares anymore. We've been dealing with people now from so many call centers on so many different companies that now when we show up and we've got Bhupinder from, India, and we've got Kelly from Nepal, it doesn't fucking matter anymore. So I think we've already passed over some of those earlier stage fears. And then I think even fears like, I'm worried about my company's documentation or whatever. You have the same worry of an internal person working for you or somebody working for you in Kansas City as you do working with somebody overseas. So again, just put the systems and processes in place to counter that, and it goes away.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you kind of led, with that, because that's critical for success in this path. And, Tim Ferriss, in the 4-Hour Work Week, right? He kind of, I have a slide on it when I talk about kind of the myths around this. And, I love the fact that he brought it on the table, and that's one of the biggest entry points for a lot of people in this subject matter. But it's kind of this perception of like, these people just kind of come out of the womb and just kind of know how to support you in your business for $3 an hour. And you don't have to do a lot of like training necessarily and education around it, because it certainly does require, if you introduce somebody locally down the street or somebody in the Philippines into a tornado and you don't have a process and frameworks in place, they're going to fail, right? Yeah. And then you're going to blame them because, it was their problem, when in reality, you don't have things kind of in order in your own, organization. And so it's the most unsexy, unexciting thing. So
funny you mentioned Tim Ferriss, because it was in the summer of 2008 that I took Tim Ferriss to Burning Man for his first Burning Man. Tim and I had met the year before at a speaking.
Oh, really?
We both met at a Warren Buffett event that we were speaking at in late 2007. And I took him to the event, early 2008, but I took him to Burning Man in summer 2008. And he introduced me to the concept of freelancing and outsourcing. And then that fall, he was at my home in Vancouver talking to me about it. And he was the actual impetus for me to hire my first offshore person. It's crazy.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that story.
Yeah, we met.
I was just seeing everybody posting their Burning Man photos here.
We met at the EO Oklahoma chapter, but I took Tim to his very first burn in summer 2007.
Well, that is a fantastic fun fact. He's continued to soar and be very successful in all the different, strategies, and talk about a content machine. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that was, he did create, it's funny when I would go speak for EO chapters, I'd put the picture of his book up and I'd say, everybody raise hands. How many people read, Tim Ferriss' 4 Hour Work Week? So it created the awareness and entry point for a lot of people. But a lot of that initially was around just, purely freelancers to do one-off types of things, not necessarily fully integrated people in your organization, kind of working, side by side. But to your point, back, the systems and processes are a critical element that they can remove the fear if you get that in place. And again, it doesn't matter if you're hiring somebody in the Philippines or somebody, locally. That's something you got to be committed to in your organization. It's not the most exciting thing to wake up. Everybody loves waking up and their feet hitting the ground every day. Let's document some processes and create systems and protocols, right? But it is what will truly set you free from a scale standpoint. And the most successful businesses, the ones that are crushing it, right? They are ones that have taken the disciplined effort. And actually, I had a call with my team earlier today. I was like, the level of detail that I want our protocols is every single time someone breathes in a step process of our entire HubSpot from lead entry point all the way through to them becoming a long-term client, every micro step I want audited and make sure everybody is clear. And everybody on the Zoom call needs to raise their hand that they're completely clear on what that process is before it gets signed off on. But it's fatiguing and it takes a lot of time. But when you do it right, you can plug people into a successful organization, or otherwise you're going to be setting them up, for failure. So,
and if you don't have systems like that in place for full-time employees based in the city that you've got an office in, they're going to fail too. And I think it's so easy. It was too easy for companies to blame an offshore person or an outsourced hire. I love this analogy that when you point your finger at someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you, right? And if people are listening, but make a fingers, make your hand into like a finger, like a gun. When you point one, you got 3 fingers pointing back at you. And I try to teach my clients that when you're blaming that offshore hire, there's probably 3 things that your company is doing wrong to set them up for that failure that you had in the first place, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's the human nature, the defense mechanism of, can't be my fault, right? It's got to be someone else's, and that gives us more, comfort. And so, adopting the old extreme ownership mentality is the only way you're going to really make progress. So I guess through that lens, Cameron, with the COO Alliance, COOs, right? They live and breathe in operational infrastructure. I've got a chance to. Cameron invited me out to go speak at the Vancouver event they had recently, and just an incredible event, and just such a unique niche you're servicing, and hearing everybody share their feedback from the experience. And not many people provide a home and a place for COOs to go live and breathe and engage, and just hearing everybody's feedback was tremendous. But through that lens, what do you, as far as clients and through the COO Alliance and the feedback, is the biggest operational challenges that you're hearing everyone share that you guys are helping them with in those operational issues? I know that's the entry point for us a lot of times, is unpacking the operational challenges. But what are the key themes you're hearing?
One is people. They're just struggling to find the right people, to hire the right people, to get results through the right people, to get the people aligned. That's a big one. Another tends to be the tenure of the employees, that there's a lot more turnover. And by the way, I've noticed less turnover with offshore hires because they're more loyal. They're happier to have the job. They really want to stay, they need the job. They're not hopping from company to company like North Americans tend to. But yeah, that tends to be another big one, is the tenure. And then I'm also noticing that the skill set of the managers tends to be a lot lower, that people are hiring people with confidence, but they've never done it before. And they start overcomplicating the business when business can actually be quite simple if you have those leadership skills, right?
And those are recurring. I think that we're seeing a lot when we entry point with clients, very similar type of themes. And, it's interesting you mentioned as far as the turnover side specifically as well. If people can find good, high performing, strategic thinking, employees, they need to keep them for sure. More than ever. And part of that path, and it's been an interesting byproduct of the whole, outsourcing VA stuff that I wasn't anticipating, is we've had a lot of our clients share how it's actually been a retention tool for their U.S. employees, which is kind of ironic. And that, when they can get, one of their staff paired up so that they can focus on, because a lot of times turnover happens because people are forced to do stuff that isn't their genius zone. They're having to, do activities that aren't in alignment that they signed up for initially. And when you can give somebody the gift of letting them live in their genius zone and take things off their plate so they can focus where they thrive, right? That ends up being a major retention. We got a client that's had 8 staff with us for about going on 6 years now. He said, Brad, like none of my staff will leave me because nobody else in my industry has the foresight to like pair them with a VA that they would get, right? So it changes the culture experience for them as well.
Yeah, if a leadership, like if a CEO or a COO would sit down with their executive team or their management team and look at all the stuff that those team members have to work on, a lot of it is minimum wage work or work that can be offshored at a fraction of minimum wage in North America. And if I found out that I was paying somebody $200,000 a year to do $12 an hour work, I'd fire them. I'd be like, why are you doing this? Well, why don't we help them get the work off their plate and make it okay for them to know that they can hire that offshore talent? So I think your idea of pairing executives and senior management people with executives is really, really powerful. I noticed it back in the day when we were building 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I was going to get an executive assistant, and Brian asked if he could share her with me for the first 6 months. And I was like, sure, we can do that. We can totally share the assistant. And after about 6 weeks, he realized he had too much work, that he just needed a full-time one too. And it's kind of what it's like a gateway drug, right? Once you start using the assistant, you realize, wow, I can get a lot more stuff off my plate to free me up to do the stuff that I'm energized by, to free me up to do the stuff that I love to do, to free me up the stuff that I'm really good at doing, right? And to free me up to do the stuff that's actually in my pay grade, so that I'm not being paid all this money to do stuff that's just below me.
Yeah, I mean, human beings want to feel like they're fundamentally making progress and doing good work that they're, enjoying, and, regardless of income that they're making, right? If they're not making progress in areas that are fulfilling, it doesn't matter. And, it's that god awful trap, the zone of competence, right? That's right below the zone of genius, right? It's the zone of competence, the stuff that you can do and that you are good at, but it's not at all what lights your fire. And it's the zone of death, I think, of a lot of C-suite executives, and certainly a lot of business owners that never get out of their own way to scale, is they live in that zone of competence all the time and never get to that place of genius where you add the most value. And and that's a big area. We think we've shared this 2-question exercise that we've done, and we got a chance to do it with a lot of the CO Alliance members, and it's so simple. And CEOs are still blown away when I tell them this, because we've done it with thousands of companies now. I'm like, yep, just 2 simple questions. Take these 2 questions, send it to your staff, right? What is it that you're doing that you don't think is the best use of your time, and how many hours per month are you spending on it? That's it. And they got to answer the second question, right? Not just, but they got to think through that second part, is how many hours per month are you spending on it? Because a lot of times they're like, oh, I'm not going to put that because I don't spend that much time, and I'm not going to put that. I'm like, nope, ask them to do it, because they will be surprised at how that quickly that number adds up. And you got to give them psychological safety to tell you the things that they don't think is the best use of your time. And then secondly, from where you sit in the organization, what do you think we should be doing that we're not doing due to time, money, or knowledge constraints? And, CEOs are like, man, these consultants come in and they got 400-page surveys. Like, this is going to work? I'm like, yep. And we had this like $300 million pharmacy we worked with recently. COO, I said, yep, send it. Send it to 8 of his managers. They've been working with this company for, some of them, 12, 15 years. They came back with hundreds of items. And the CEO's always like, well, John, you've been with me for 8 years. Why did you get 52 items on this list? Well, you never really asked me. And it happens. I can tell you how many times that same situation, we got a big national healthcare client we're working with here based in Atlanta that's rolling out a whole sleep study company nationwide. And we did the same 2 little question exercise with his 3 staff, and 57 items on that list. So it's
also it's not just about the time that it's saving. And here's a really, really interesting point, that when I think the great companies understand this, but the average companies in the middle haven't experienced it yet. When your management team is working on the stuff that they're really good at and they love to do, they bring more of that positive energy into the workforce. They bring more of that positive energy into every meeting. They bring more of that positive energy into every interaction with other people. And that momentum creates momentum. That positive energy creates more positive energy. Every project or task that they work on that drains them of energy, that's below their effective hourly rate, has them showing up drained, has them showing up with bad energy inside of the organization. So the cost isn't even as much as what it's costing them to do minimum wage work. The cost is often what the negative energy is, because they're not working on the stuff they're really good at and they love to do. I love doing podcast and media interviews. I've done hundreds of media interviews. I wrote a book called Free PR. I love this shit. But so I can do these all day and I show up with this great fired up energy. But there's other stuff that just drains me and sucks me down. And then I get on a call with a client with the wrong energy. The impact on my business is so powerful when I can get all the minutia and all that administrivia off my plate. And you can also, by the way, outsource stuff that is high impact work. You can outsource strategic work. You can outsource research work. You can outsource data analytics, like stuff that you would be paying $150,000 person in the US. You can get somebody in the Middle East or Pakistan or like, the Philippines to do it for a fraction of that cost. So it doesn't just have to be admin work that you're outsourcing either.
Absolutely. And there's so many great case studies. And that's one of the fallacies a lot of times is perception about what they're capable of, right? For some reason, they think they're in a different country, that the competency, but it is, that's one of the biggest things that blew me away. When I first started my business, my very first VA, 23-year-old girl that had never been a VA before and had one small corporate job, was able to raise her lid and be my COO over 500 people in 4.5 years. The hunger and desire to learn and to grow is tremendous. We just placed a controller for a big national private equity franchise group that, they'd easily pay probably 180 grand, right? And we got somebody for about 41, 42. So that's another thing is I encourage everybody, don't put it in a box of like, it's a low level kind of admin task. They're capable, they're learning. We got a turf care client we're working with that uses this pretty sophisticated routing software called Field Routes. They got to route 1,000 technicians every single week. And one of our staff that never done this before in his life got it, absorbed it, and within 30 days, he was running this sophisticated logistics routing software for all 1,000 of their technicians. So you be amazed at what they're capable of. Don't kind of cut it short. So on that note, Cameron, I'd love for you to share, just specifically for CO Alliance, with our staff, we had a chance to, appreciate you kicking off the session, sharing specifically some things she's been helping with on interfacing with sales and communication. But there's a couple of specific examples you could share with listeners to give a sense of how you've integrated her in supporting you and Meredith in the CO Alliance.
Well, she's doing direct sales outreach right now, which has been big. She's pulling stuff off of Meredith's plate, who's my VP of sales and operations, to free up Meredith's time. She's doing communications on all of my social media channels, replying to posts and replying to comments that CEOs and COOs are making. She's replying as me. She's logging into my account and replying as me with perfect English and amazing responses. And I've had people that are coming back going, "Oh God, that was such a great, so helpful." I'm like, I didn't even talk to you, right? So yeah, it's just lots.
And I was having the team and they're sharing, I think she's like kind of helping with like communication and like member kind of coordinating and managing with the actual CO Alliance members and like helping respond and communicate and coordinate events.
Because she reports directly to Meredith, there's stuff that she's doing that I'm not even aware of because I'm managing at more of a strategic and a leadership team level. She doesn't report to me. She reports to one of my direct reports. So I just know that she's been able to free up so much of Meredith's time that Meredith is taking on more responsibilities that are higher level, right? That are, in that $200,000 a year person versus the, $20 an hour tasks.
Yeah. So practicing what we preach here, right? So in essence, by having this resource, play into the operations, it's a good thing that you don't know kind of what they're doing on a super detailed level, but particularly with Meredith and, I'm going to have her on as well and share her feedback, but being able to elevate her to focus on other elements. And so I was looking at quick. I think, she's handling like reporting and compliance, doing communication and coordination with all the members, doing CRM and data management. For their member-based organization, managing and supporting the members and giving them value and, helping them from a retention standpoint, is a key, element. And that's all. She mentioned doing an AI software project with Cloud 37, doing a custom-built AI tool for CO Alliance. It sounds like she's helping Meredith with that particular project. So, to the point of skill sets, there's such avid learners, right? And being able to kind of absorb and take on things, and they can wear multiple hats as well. That's another fallacy a lot of people think is like, well, you mean the same person could like handle like receivables and QuickBooks and also like post on social media? And it's, yes, those are all process-driven types of tasks. If you no different than somebody who works in your office can take on multiple projects and tasks. Like, I think the biggest thing that people have got to wrap their head around is just because the person is a freelancer or an offshore person doesn't mean they're different from the people that we have at home. In fact, they're pretty much the same as the people that we have at home.
and treat them the same.
Yeah.
Like treat them and onboard them and make them a part of your team like you do people that are at home. I think if you treat them differently, you're actually going to have a worse result.
Yeah, and that's another key area of failure point is people do look at it differently, and that's what we encourage. I mean, at Outsource Access, I mean we hire everybody as full-time employees. We pay all their health insurance. We pay their benefits. We put them through a battery of 15 assessments. We do we're going through a couple thousand applicants a month, but I'm all about measuring 10 times and cutting once, and bringing people in that want to pursue this as a career path and have the competency level to support clients when we kind of engage them. And then we take care of them, right? I mean, we provide leadership development programs called SOAR. We invest about 40 grand a year in ongoing training and education. If they want to up level their skills to support their staff and our clients in another way, providing that element. We have our own magazine in the Philippines that purely is nothing dedicated, but just like showcasing our staff. Our VA of the year is always on the cover of the magazine, and we distribute to all the universities. So it's about lifting them up, and from a culture standpoint, the same way you would with your existing staff, getting their engagement and caring about something bigger than themselves. And that's a fundamental element everybody's looking for with the United Nations. We do a lot of alignment with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and in asking our staff what do they want to invest in and grow. And so we help fund those activities. So just like you do culture in your own company domestically, you do it the same way, and embrace them in the journey and in the in the process. So appreciate the shares there. It's right down the crosshairs of what everybody's kind of navigating in this path. And so encourage everyone to, whatever the path it is, I'd love to support you here at Outsource Access and what we do. And I'll share some resources. But just go down this journey, build the muscle and explore it, kind of allow some of those doubt, fears, and concerns to kind of be suppressed a bit. And you'd be pretty amazed at what you can kind of uncover when you can kind of explore this, this journey.
So considering we're telling
Cameron, for everybody to kind of follow you, and okay.
Yeah, I said we're telling 190 COOs to be using Outsourced Access. So if you're not using you guys already, you should definitely take a good look.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Well, it's one thing I will say, tooting our horn as far as part of the challenge people have, back to your initial share around it, is getting your own house in order, is that people don't know how to go down this journey sometimes, even once they identify their constraint points. So we've tried to put a lot of effort into being a full advisory to help people understand how to integrate this. And, in our onboarding, we do these weekly calls, every single week for the first 90 days with our, team leaders, our account managers, because we're fully managing this resource along with our clients managing as well, to really help everybody get their hands on the wheel on both sides of the equation, and then document all the processes, right? And to your point, whatever company or path you go down, like, make sure whoever is that they're documenting the processes and you're getting a playbook, right? So if there ends up being a transition or something happens, that you are making sure that you got everything documented. If you got to bring somebody else in to train them kind of in that, in that process. So, well, Cameron, as far as I know, a lot of exciting things going on at COO Alliance. And so kind of sharing that, and, obviously got a whole bunch of listeners listening in this path, but any kind of key executives and invest in your leaders. So share a little bit about the program that you've got, and everybody can go to COOalliance.com. I'll pull that up here while you're sharing real quick, Cameron, and just share a variety of things that you guys, have available that people can kind of engage and, get more value.
Yeah. And I have to hop. I've got to be out to an event here in about 60 seconds. So just really quickly to wrap, if you go to CameronHerold.com, and that has links to my Invest in Your Leaders training. It has links to the COO Alliance, my Second Command podcast, all 6 of my books, our YouTube channels, lots of free resources there. If you go to CameronHerold.com, you kind of scroll down, it just literally gives you almost like a link tree, all the main stuff on the homepage.
Fantastic. You can see here's a ton of downloads and content. So CameronHerold.com. We'll put that in the show notes, and I'll share with everybody. If you shoot an email to tools, TOOLS, tools@outsourceaccess.com, and put Cameron in the subject line, we'll send you our template to go through this 2-question exercise. Quick video that explains it. Over 700 tasks we've done from 4 million hours of work that we can engage, and then a tool that you can actually engage this process with you and your team. I know you'll find a ton of value as I've been sharing in the examples here. So, well, Cameron, I'll let you get to your son. Thanks for your time. Thanks for being a client and the opportunity to engage with the COO Alliance community, and encourage everybody to go check out what he has to offer, and look forward to continuing the path ahead.
Awesome. Thanks, Brad. Congrats again.